the iPad. You're
Um,
still, you're still, that's
consider
okay.
consider me an acolyte to that discipline.
Okay. So you guys, before I got on, you guys already tested Gabe's slides and they're okay, huh?
Yes, yeah, that was one of the reasons that I'm on with two devices, so I could share from the phone and make sure that uh, everything worked on my iPad, which is a mere participant.
Do you want to quickly show us some, Gabe?
Sure.
What,
Do that.
Jonathan, is that your version of Prove It?
No, I just want to see what it looks like.
Yeah, when Gabe asked the question, I realized I've never used Keynote on my iPhone and never even thought to do it for any reason. But
But you've used your phone to at, to advance a keynote slide on another device, right?
no,
No?
no, I don't. The number of Keynote presentations I've ever used on any iOS device is single digits. So I have no experience there.
Yeah, I think it's been Gabe used for a long time. If you're presenting a keynote on your Mac or an iPad, to then use the phone to connect the connected iPhone to move the slides more easily.
That sounds like a convenience.
Well, now I'm having trouble getting out of this stupid keynote screen. Oh, here we go. No.
Oh, I see your phone. Uh-huh.
Yeah, you see my phone, but I can't get to where I want in Keynote.
Is that your presentation that's showing right now?
Well, it will be if I can bring up Keynote.
No, we're seeing Keynote.
Oh,
A moment ago, we were looking at Keynote and it had your the icon for your presentation on the screen. There you go. Now you're in Keynote. There's your. Now we can see your
that is
folder.
not, stop.
Oh,
That is not the presentation.
okay, but you are in Keynote. Okay, so
I am
where is
in
your?
Keynote, but I cannot get out of this Keynote screen. I hate Keynote now.
Can you hit? Does Recents work? No. Does Browse work?
No, Browse gets me to that. I can't figure out how to get Keynote to let go of settings and give me back to files. It's the most unintuitive, stupid program. Ah, maybe this will.
Well, if you choose your location for your program,
Okay, you need to stop talking so I can focus on this.
I think Gabe is trying to navigate to his presentation.
Right, and I cannot convince Keynote. Ah, here we go. Now, don't suggest that I touch anything.
So that's from your iPhone, Gabe.
Yes. Well, I've presented before. I presented in Fredericksburg maybe a year and a half ago or 2 years ago with absolutely minimal technology. I've had Keynote running on my iPad where I was sharing my screen with Zoom, and I was using the iPhone, which can mirror or control Keynote, connected to the projector in the room. So using the iPad to serve the remote people and the phone mirroring the presentation to serve the people in the room, that was all I needed to present. for a perfectly fine hybrid meeting. So when people whine to me about how complicated presenting at hybrid meetings can be, I say, no, you can, if you just use these two Apple devices, it's absolutely trivial.
Gabe, you suggested you didn't want us to suggest that you tap anything. How is it you move through the screens now in Keynote on your phone? Oh, you are tapping. Okay.
I just tap the screen.
Okay.
And again, another bizarre aspect of Keynote, the only way I have found to get out of Keynote is to do that, bring up the slides on the left, get to the last slide, tap it again, and then I get the arrow to take me out. So Keynote is a tough negotiating partner.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay, well, that's going to
your
look good.
slides are actually in PowerPoint, Gabe?
That's how I create them. Then I email them to my Gmail account, and then I open them on the device. So I actually have them both on the iPhone and iPad. And then I open it, and that summons Keynote, and that tells somebody on the device, oh, that's a Keynote file. And then I can look for the file in the Keynote folder. And so that happens seamlessly, that Keynote imports what had been a PowerPoint file, and adopts it as its own. Sadly, PowerPoint is not nearly that hospitable to Keynote files. Nobody on the PC knows what in the world to do with a Keynote file.
That's too bad that it doesn't go both ways.
Yes. It's too bad, but not surprising that Microsoft didn't do that in PowerPoint. I think Apple is more aware and accommodating that people are going to do what I do, which is prepare a presentation in PowerPoint and want to present it on an Apple device.
Yep.
Oh, I don't know. I just think it's Apple has their mobile devices that have to be able to render these things.
I haven't found working in Keynote or whatever the other Apple equivalents are of Office applications to be comfortable. I mean, same as working in Google Docs. I'm much more familiar with the Office suite on the PC, and I'm actually even more familiar with a text editor that I've been using for probably 40 years. And so I do most of my work in that, and then import it into whatever Office app it needs to be in, and then when I need to send it to the Apple devices. My chore for tomorrow will be setting up my wife's new iPad 10th generation, because it was easier deciding what version of the iPad to buy for her was than the one I'm planning to buy.
All right.
So is that one
fun.
you can just put the two devices next to each other and update and
Should be.
configure the new one that way?
Should be. Yeah, I think all I need to do is make sure there's a current backup of my wife's current iPad, and then power up the new iPad and follow instructions. And in the past, I think I've had to restore from backup, which is trivial. And so if putting the two devices next to each other and letting them cuddle, that would be even easier.
Yeah, it does seem to be when it works, it's pretty smooth.
Maybe I can get the word cuddle adopted as what's involved in setting up a new device when you just put it next to the old device.
Well, every time you say it, just say trademark pending. I don't know what that'll accomplish, but it'll be a reminder.
Right.
Okay, cool.
Oh, and just for even more connectivity between all the various devices, when I look at my watch now, it's telling me that I'm sharing audio from the phone to my hearing aids. So we're just a big cuddle
Amazing.
here of Apple
Amazing.
devices.
Amazing. It works.
Hey, I wanted to ask you,
Gabe, how
Gabe.
do you, Gabe, do you have control there on your phone? Do you have a control to stop sharing on your, in the
Sure,
Zoom? Okay, I didn't know what,
somewhere.
yeah, I didn't know where it appeared because I don't think that's something that you can see on the other end. I just,
I guess I'm still sharing. Shall I stop sharing?
Yes.
Too many screens to navigate.
What I was going to ask differently, and then soon we'll start letting people in, um, is I think you are the Windows test subject for with iOS 18 with the new Passwords app to see whether iCloud on Windows can use the Passwords app on your PC.
I'm looking forward to that. As I've said, having really been repelled by iTunes on Windows, I've been very impressed with iCloud on Windows. Apple apparently found somebody who actually understands Windows, and iCloud on Windows is a very nice piece of work. And so I'm assuming that when they add the Passwords app, that will continue.
Yeah, I remember that well, so that's why that's why I've been thinking about that.
I'm looking forward to a report on that because I help someone primarily remotely who's a Windows user, and I'm interested in how the Passwords app will work. I don't know that I'll switch over from 1Password because I like it for other reasons, but I'm really fascinated by how that's going to work with iCloud for Windows.
How do you help them remotely? Do you have a Windows machine, or do you use an Apple device to access a Windows machine?
I use my Mac and a program called Remote PC to access her PC, and
Do you know
once
this
I'm
this is
connected, I'm in.
this is exactly a discussion that we should open the meeting and start having, okay?
There you go.
Well, I was just thinking as you were talking that this is something that other people would be interested in.
Well, and besides that, it's 10 o'clock.
Mhm. Okay, I'm admitting everybody. Van, I think I already made you a co-host.
Looks like it. Yes.
And Gabe also a co-host, so the sharing goes well. Yeah, so Gabe, we still have the share screen disabled for participants. And we'd rather make the speakers co-host than change that. So that's what we do. Good morning,
Dr.
everybody. We'll wait for some more people to join, but welcome to our Pi July general meeting. And this is going to be a fun one that a lot of people have asked about for some time. And it looks like Bill Wydrow has finger up. So I don't think a finger raises the Zoom hand, but go
Yeah.
ahead, Bill.
Well, I'm told this meeting, I understand this meeting is about earring maids. It sounds like something J.D. Vance would promote, but I'm going to hang around anyway.
All righty then. Folks, before we actually started formally, we were actually, Gabe and Van were having a discussion about remote help tools. And why don't you guys continue that discussion now so other people can participate?
Well, we were talking. It started out talking about the passwords app, the new passwords app that's coming out in iOS 18, iPad OS 18, and so forth, and the fact that apparently it's going to be a flavor of that's going to be available on Windows using iCloud for Windows. And so Gabe and I were both expressing our interest in exploring that. I was indicating that I don't use Windows much anymore, but I do provide remote support for a friend of mine, and she has a Windows machine. And then Gabe and I were just beginning to chat about how that remote support is provided. And there are all kinds of ways you can do that. I suppose everybody has their favorite flavor. I tend to pay for a product annually that I use to access her computer. The program that I use is called Remote PC. And it's, again, it's using standard protocols, and you can do all of this if you want without any third-party products that you pay for. There's the underlying technology is sort of open, as I understand it. But I use a product, as I said, called Remote PC, and substitute any other one you want. And boy, is that worth the price of admission. I check in on her computer every day. It's essentially rock solid. I connect. I can do everything that I need to do on her machine. I check on her mail. I check on her internet banking. Anything. I'll transfer files between my Mac and her Windows PC and vice versa. It's just I can't imagine. I mean, I've lost count of the number of 15-mile round trips I've avoided by having this product. They could triple the price and I'd sign up for it. But there are a lot of other ways to do it. But if anybody has a need for that kind of thing, you don't need to have a Windows machine. I'm not running any Windows. I'm not using any virtualization. It's just from my Mac, using this product to her Windows machine.
To describe sort of the opposite end of the spectrum, an insanely convoluted way of doing remote access. For a while, and this is now several years ago, when I would travel, I was using my iPad for remote access to my Windows computer. Now, if you think about that, you can think about there's no mouse on the iPad. And so I believe there was a Go to My PC app which presented a pretend mouse on the screen, and you could move the pretend mouse around and you could tap it and you could do all sorts of things. Because I have two large monitors on my Windows PC, just navigating between the two monitors and then mousing. The issue wasn't that it was difficult. The issue was that it was at all possible. But it actually did work, and I could actually manipulate my home Windows computer. As I've gotten further into the Apple stuff, I found it unnecessary to access back to my home machine.
I've actually used it. I think I've used the same product I was describing to you from my iPad. I don't do it. It's not as convenient. So other than a test or two, I haven't really done much with it, but it's the same kind of thing. They provide a substitute when you don't have a mouse and that kind of control device.
Yeah, not
I
to
guess we should,
interrupt.
so I guess I guess the message is don't be afraid to make friends with a Windows person.
Van, I think if Paul Goldman were in the meeting, he would uh, uh, say, comedy between the Apple world and Windows. And my funny joke about this is just a measure of how the world has turned, from the days when Apple users thought Microsoft was the evil empire. And in today's world, many of us want Microsoft to be a better competitor. We can take on any other issues that people want to raise, but I wanted to welcome Dr. Janani Perera to our meeting, who's one of our speakers this morning. And we'll come to you a little later, Dr. Perera, but thank you so much again for coming to present the audiologist perspective on our topic today.
Of course, no problem. I'm glad to be here.
And the other thing I wanted to mention is that if anyone has a question about how Zoom works, we're happy to have Mike Emery here, who is really our Zoom genius. So any questions about Zoom that Mike can help us with?
Well, I wouldn't even go so far as to say aficionado, let alone genius, but I'll do what I can. Thanks.
So other topics or help that we can take on this morning before we get started with our program?
I was going to ask you, Jonathan, the last time we talked was on a Clubhouse, I guess it was, a week ago, Clubhouse session. And it sounded like you were tempted to follow me and install an iPad OS beta on your iPad. Did you follow through with that, or that's still on the to-do list?
Do you know I did, and it's been remarkably uneventful.
Yeah.
So I think I mentioned this before that I think when things get to the public beta, I don't have the same disquiet as the developer beta or earlier in the process.
Could I say something, Jonathan?
Go ahead, Bruce. And
Yeah, I came in.
Bruce, it's so good to see you.
I know I've been away for a while now, but I hope that'll change. Various things in the universe have conspired to keep me away, but hopefully those things have changed for the better now. Van, were you talking about remote access software a minute ago?
Yeah.
And paying for what? Apple's remote access software?
No, I pay for a third-party product. And
okay.
I know that you can accomplish all of this natively.
Correct.
I understand that. And I know that you know all the details. I just happen to like and prefer and I'm very comfortable with this sort of third-party access product. I'm not recommending that specifically, but yeah, that's what I'm using.
I'm not knocking Apple's paid Apple remote access software or any third-party software because those have certain advantages over what's built in. But I just wanted to remind people that there is free remote access software built into the Mac natively. And it's a little tricky. It's not obvious how you get to it. If ever anybody wants to know, I'll be glad to tell you. I've been using the free version off and on for years now, and it's gone through improvements like any other software and so on. But it is there. It's completely free. If you already have a Mac with almost any version of the Mac OS, going way, way back has that software, and you can use it to access other Macs. And I guess I don't have any Windows PCs, but I think it will work with them too, though there might be a little bit of setup required on the Windows side first. And there is on the Mac side too. The target machine has to be turned on or has to be set up to allow it. But I won't go into that now. But if anybody's interested, we can talk about it another time, or I think we have a full day ahead here or a full program. But it is there if you're having trouble finding it or accessing it. It's really easy. What I did was find it and then put it in my dock so I don't have to go rummaging around looking anymore. And so that's all I had to say. Thanks, Jonathan and Ben.
Thanks,
I
Bruce.
think
Yeah,
the,
we
I
can
think the, I
definitely.
think the underlying technology underneath all of this is essentially the same. It's sort of an open protocol,
Probably
I believe.
because it's based on a thing called VNC, Virtual Network uh, Computer or something like that. That's an open standard, and there are third-party freebies that you can get as well as paid third-party, like the software Van has that he uses that support this same standard, and that is also the standard that the native Apple software currently supports. It wasn't always this way. If you go back 10 or 15 years, the Mac didn't have software built in natively to do this, but you could add it with a free third-party software with free third-party software, which is what I used to do back then. Now you don't even have to do that. And that's all I have, unless anybody has a quick question.
Thanks, Bruce. Let's see if Cliff has something on this or something else. Go ahead, Cliff. Good morning.
I just heard a lot about the crowd strike, and I was wondering what anybody knows about it and how concerned should we be about that? That's just a general topic, not.
Well, the answer is that it seems to have affected about 8.5 million Windows computers. So I would guess that there's a very tiny minority, possibly of one me, on this call who use Windows computers. But the good news is it really didn't affect consumers. CrowdStrike is an enterprise level security company service product. And what happened was that CrowdStrike had a bug, and that got pushed out to lots of Windows machines. And Windows was peculiarly and particularly vulnerable that with that bug in the update from CrowdStrike, those Windows machines not just failed, but had to be manually rebooted and manipulated in order to solve the problem. And that's why it has taken some very large companies, Delta Airlines, I think most noteworthy, to recover from the problem. But I doubt anybody on this call is bothered by it, except if you're trying to fly Delta.
I noticed one shop here in McLean had a sign up for about 3 days that they were closed because of it.
Right. It affected lots of payment systems. It affected hospitals, other businesses like that. So there's a second order effect when you're a consumer trying to use one of those services or go to one of those hospitals. But in terms of the facilities, the computers of people on this call, it's negligible or non-existent.
I agree.
Right, and
Van,
only.
did you have a comment?
No, I'm Gabe covered what I was going to mention.
I was just going to
Go
say,
ahead, Bruce.
as Gabe said, this only affects Windows computers, not Macs, and apparently not Linux machines either, though there aren't many of them out there. But if you have one or know somebody, those are probably okay. And on the Mac, it doesn't affect any Macs, whether they're enterprise Macs or just your individual one in your home or office. because it was a Windows type of situation. And we just had a power glitch here, amazingly, and my UPS just kicked in. So anyway, yeah. So if you have a Mac, you don't have to worry. If you have Windows and you're not in an enterprise situation, in other words, you just have your own personal Windows computer like Gabe presumably has, you don't have to worry either. It was just the people with managed computers in organizations that could have had this problem. And there was some dispute at first whether it was Microsoft's fault or CrowdStrike's fault. I don't know. It looks like the bug was in CrowdStrike software, but the update mechanism, I think, is set up by Windows or part of the Windows operating system. And the reason they do this in the first place, it's automated so that when CrowdStrike comes up with an update, it gets pushed out very quickly. That's what you want because they're protecting all these computers against possible security problems. But the other side of the coin, as we've seen, is if there's a bug in whatever software CrowdStrike pushes out, then all of a sudden everybody, all those millions of machines have that bug and they have a problem. So it's a double-edged sword, and there's good and bad. And I did read where Microsoft is somehow or other apparently changing something concerning with their update system or methodology. However, that does not mean that they're at fault. It just means they're trying to do what they can on their end to prevent this from happening in the future. I think it was probably buggy software that CrowdStrike pushed out that was the root cause. And so anyway, so most of you can probably everybody in this meeting can rest easily unless you have a job that you go to where that has a Windows computer that's managed or something. And a lot of people on this in this club are retired now, so that probably wouldn't affect most of us.
Or Bruce, if somebody had a Delta flight that got canceled. Yeah, thanks for your comments.
Right. There's always that.
Thanks for your comments, Bruce.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yeah, folks. So first, I put in the chat a link to our Pi at 10 page. So fill in the Google form to be eligible for the door prize that we do at the end of the meeting. And last, just a couple of announcements of just the general meeting programs that we have planned. So next month in August will be a fun presentation by another Planetary Society young scientist, and this will be about exoplanets. So that will be a fun one. In September, Aaron Davis will give his annual present of new Apple stuff, which always are just wonderful, wonderful sessions. In October, we have a return of Jennifer Wilcox. Is that October or November? When we get a little later in the year, we'll send around a plan for that. At this point, why don't we get started with our presents? And Gabe, do you want to get started with yours?
I do.
Okay. Everyone Gabe Goldberg is very well known to all of us. He comes from the original mainframe world and long was a member of the PATOX group, the PC users group, and then came to us through his love of Apple mobile devices. For a while now, Gabe has been on our board and has been a wonderful, wonderful participating member of the Pi, facilitating many, many of our general meeting presentations and other things. So, Gabe, thanks for all of your contributions. And what I'll do is try to spotlight the sign-in of you that is presenting. So people will see that and take it away.
Okay, thank you. Let me just reciprocate what you said about my participation in the pie. I discovered it when I bought my first iPad, and I was attracted by the mobile lifestyle SIG that Roy Wagner ran. And so I wasn't interested in the Mac and didn't have earbuds, but really enjoyed the mobile lifestyle SIG. And then as Apple boxes arrived and filled my house, so after I had the iPad, then my wife did, then we both had iPhones, then I have an Apple Watch, and we have 3 HomePods. More and more benefit from the Pi has been extraordinary. So it's a fun group. So I'm going to talk about hearing aids, and as the announcement showed, this will be a duet where I'll talk about the consumer viewpoint on hearing aids, and then my doctor of audiology, who has joined us, will talk about the perspective from provider and the industry. So by way of introduction, as Jonathan said, my career has been in IT, and for the last 20 or 30 years, it's been more technology, writing, editing, consulting.